All right, well, good morning. Today we are joined by Dr. Amanuel from our Mike School of Business, and we are repeating a session that was held back in June. It was our foundational session for leading effective teams in a hybrid remote work setting. We were also joined by Dr. Christine Jackson and Dr. AJ Panapali, and we really began with a foundation of three areas: the environment we're working right now, which is a hybrid remote and ever-changing environment. So Dr. Panapali addressed that with some challenges and themes and some things we could do about that as leaders. Christine Jackson also talked about building trust. And Dr. Tekla will come back to that as we continue on this foundation and really think about how we can engage an effective team to be productive and happy and engage in their role. So Dr. Tekla, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Would you please just give us a quick introduction so that those of us who are not do not know each other get a chance to meet you?
Thank you, Sharon. I'm a professor of management at the School of Business. I should just say, Michael School of Business. I've been here for almost 15 years now, and my research areas mainly focus on employment relationships, teams, and leadership. And I've been teaching both undergrad, master's, and PhD classes.
Oh, wonderful. And we're so lucky to have you and just thrilled to be able to work with you. We've learned a lot through this process, and I think we're going to continue to learn with our leaders across Wayne State. So let's get into our session today, building on what we had done in June. There are many drivers to engaging teams and individuals, aren't there? So can you frame us up with some of the things that we're experiencing and why it's important to really engage our team, especially during this time?
Sure. Well, as you know, one of the main things that organizations look for in their employees is engagement. And engagement really involves dedication of the individuals to the work that they do and their effort and everything. And we want all our employees to be really engaged so that we can be productive. And we also know that much of this engagement is really driven by the supervisors. Research shows, Gallup research shows, 70% of the individual's engagement is driven by the managers. What it means is managers have huge role in shaping individuals and their staff's engagement. It's critically important that those managers be involved in helping their employees to be engaged. And we also learned from this research that it doesn't matter in terms of the mode that individuals are involved in, like is it in person or remote? But generally, this research shows individuals who work actually remotely, 60% to 80% of the time are more engaged than those who work exclusively in one place, either totally in remote or totally in person. So what it means is managers can also be more flexible in terms of how they can design the work so that their individuals, their employees, their staff could actually be more engaged.
And Dr. Tekla, when we speak about engagement, what does that mean? What does that look like? I don't know if there's a true definition of it, or how do we know that people are truly engaged? What does that mean?
So, well, excuse me. What can I say? Generally, engagement, it involves dedication of the individuals. They are into the work, they are immersed into the work that they are doing, and they are putting their effort in order to accomplish their goals. This is actually their total immersed in the activities that they do. without distractions. Sometimes there are so many things around us, but if we are totally focused on what we do, and we are not only happy to be to do the job, but we are totally immersed in it and dedicated to the work that we do, and we are putting our effort to accomplish our goals.
So it might seem that we're not, we might also be satisfied in our job, but this is even above and beyond that, where we're feeling energized by what we're doing, and maybe even going above and beyond, especially in a time that's pretty challenging right now.
That's true. That's correct. And we have some distraction at this time, but to get focused and to do our job and to be energized and to work and to be immersed in what we do, really managers play a significant role in shaping that environment.
Mm. Okay, thank you so much for that. And thinking about our role is focused today, but also thinking about how things have changed and shifted with regard to policies or procedures or ways that as an organization, we're approaching working during and after COVID. Can you tell us a little bit about what we're experiencing as an industry and just in general with how we're working in this environment?
Yeah, it's surprising to see the drastic changes that we observe in organizations. We see that many organizations are now being willing to let individuals do remote work. This research by Robinson and Hickman, it's also HBR. They showed that early on in April 2020, compared to June and compared to August 2020, how things really changed over time. And some of them thought that in April, policies would not change compared to before, early in April, but later on, that actually decreased from 40 to 26% in August. That's August 2020. And now in 2021, this actually definitely has decreased significantly because organizations need to be flexible. In terms of allowing workers to work remotely, that also really changed significantly in that from April to August. It jumped from 53% to 68% in August 2020. That's that short period of time. And now actually not only organizations are willing, they are implementing policies so that individuals be more flexible and work remotely from home. So generally, we see these drastic changes in organizations overall.
Yeah, drastic change upon change, and then trying to manage through that, kind of managing the daily space and then manage back out again, to align and share that vision with people. And I know at Wayne State, we're also working to understand how we can balance the needs of our work and our customers with the needs of our staff and their personal circumstances right now. It's challenging. So there are some things that we might be able to do as we're learning, as we're developing guidelines for working in a flexible way. I know that kind of bringing it down to that level for what we can do as the leaders. There are, back to these drivers of team effectiveness, there's some key areas that we might focus on today that really will help leaders thinking about how they manage their folks and the decisions that they make to be able to grant this flexibility in a changing time. Can you tell us a little bit about those 4 drivers that we might spend some time today talking about?
Sure. So just to be honest, there are so many drivers of effectiveness, team effectiveness. But for this session purposes, I limit my discussion on these 4 elements, 4 critical important elements: team collaboration, team learning, team trust, and team conflict. And today we will be kind of talking about all these 4 elements, and then we'll also talk about team effectiveness in general and some concluding remarks.
All right, so it sounds great. Yeah, because the whole purpose of this is the effectiveness piece, being able to get our work done, to achieve results and be productive, but also how we do that, how we go about enabling an environment and enabling individuals to do that. And team collaboration is a great place to start. Like you said, there's so many, but we're just focused on these right now. So give us a platform and some things to focus on one at a time, and make maybe some changes or improvements as we're thinking about how we're doing this now and how we're being impacted, and what we might want to do differently. So starting with team collaboration, if we could, can we talk about how that's evolving and how that's shaping up and why that's so important for teams who might work in different environments?
Yeah, so team collaboration is really critically important for any organization to survive. As we know, many organizations are now structured by teams, and each individual is dependent on each other, and therefore, unless otherwise there is collaboration among the individuals, then it's going to be difficult in order to achieve any goal of the organization or the unit for that matter. So there are some suggestions given by Gretton and Erickson in their HBR article in 2007. They really list out a number of about 8 of those different characteristics, different things that managers need to be doing. I'm going to focus on a few of those today. And the first one is really modeling collaborative behavior. Think about this. If our employees are going to be following what we want them to do, if they are going to follow, if they are going to do what we want them to do, then we have to first of all model that behavior. The same applies to collaborative behavior. If we as managers are describing or showing to our employees what we do and how we do it, and how we collaborate with other managers, with other leaders, then they can learn from our experience. And what this modern collaborative behavior is just simply that, to show how we are collaborating. For example, you can take a picture of the team, you as a leader collaborating with other team leaders, and take that picture, take a picture, and then post it on the web, or even show the kind of the meeting, some of the meeting that you have, and how each of you are supporting each other. And when you do that, it kind of gives some highlights. If you do it, they are also expected to do, but also they feel confident to do the same thing, just like what you do. So you as a manager are responsible to show that this behavior is appropriate, is needed, and when you do that, then your team members are going to also follow that. Second one is, we have different tasks, different projects, and our leadership style needs also to change from time to time. Sometimes when a new project is started, then the leadership style that's really appropriate at that time will be to focus on the task. Okay, what are the issues in this assignment? What are our objectives? How can we achieve all these different objectives? And once we really set that on, then the next we can change our leadership style to what we call this relationship style, where the focus is going to be more in bringing the team together to create that cohesive environment and to be collaborative. So you as a leader need to also change your leadership style from the early stage of the job or the assignment or the task or the project to the latter time of the project. The other is, which is really important, we also have different projects at different times. We complete one project and we also assign a new project. When we have all these different new projects, it's also important to remember that when we assign individuals to these different projects, let's move the whole team as a whole to this new project. Why do we do that? Because when we do this, they have already established the needed relationship, and they can easily work together, and they don't have that learning curve to understand each other. And they are able to move from one project to another project seamlessly, and they are going to be mostly focused on the task rather than on other team-related issues. Mm-hmm. So these 3 out of the 8 that are, I think, critically important for you. And I encourage you also to read the other 5 elements as well. There are things that CEOs should do, that HR should do, and so on. And I encourage you to read the article by Creighton and Erickson, 2007, the HBR.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, you speak a lot about that foundation of trust. We'll come back to that in a little while, but modeling that behavior and even sharing the things that you're doing with other leaders, that's a glimpse that a lot of times teams don't get to see. It's being vulnerable a little bit too, to say, hey, here's what happens. So therefore I'm kind of walking the talk, right?
Right,
And making
right.
sure that you see I'm doing it as well. And then being able to kind of flex that flexible, almost that radical flexibility. We've heard terms in other times now that, springing to those boundaries, but then being able to flex back and forth. So you might have a particular leadership style, but as you just mentioned, between the group's needs and maybe some individuals too, being able to, pull back or come out a little bit more at the start of things, or as the teams are going on, they might need a little more coaching, or they might need just a little more support. And being aware of that, I think you bring out is the importance of being able to do that, to really get that collaborative spirit going, and then build on that so that the next project just is jump started in a way.
Right.
So when we think about that, for ourselves and our team, then there's learning that's going on to help us do that, or building on the learning or leveraging on learning that we need to do. And as teams change too, even the same team with change can need a little bit of regrouping, or a little bit of learning it, learning over some things or learning some new things. Can you talk to us a little bit about improving the team learning in that particular dynamic and how that impacts a team's effectiveness?
Sure. So, you frame it very well, Sharon. The thing is, when they are moving and when they are interacting, when they are working together, they are always learning. They are always learning. And managers have also the responsibility to help their teams to learn from each other, or even from other teams as well. So, there are a number of things that you can also do, and I'm going to mention again a few of them here. And there is a really interesting report by the Hague in the New York Magazine that talks about the importance of what we call psychological safety. This psychological safety is really critically important for individuals. What we mean by psychological safety is individuals or team members feel free to speak up without any negative consequences, without any penalty. So you as a leader need to encourage individuals to share their thoughts and not be criticized for sharing their thoughts. And that kind of environment, that kind of willingness is important to create. And they, in that article, talks about the importance of creating these group norms. For example, one of the ways to create that psychological safety is let individuals speak almost equal time. There will be a time where someone may dominate the conversation, but you as a manager or you as a leader, you have also the responsibility to manage that, and so that everybody can speak and get the time to speak. And when you do that, people feel that they are included. People feel that they are part of the team. People also are going to be able to share knowledge or ideas or thoughts that they have that no one ever thought about. So giving that opportunity really gives individuals and teams that opportunity to learn more, to learn new things. And there is also the second element, what we call the social sensitivity. When you are also leading the teams and creating this psychological safe environment, when people speak up, they are also sensitive to what others say, and they are also sensitive to what they say. Are they affecting individuals' moods or affecting individuals' feelings? That sensitivity is also important, and you make sure as a leader that is really maintained and individuals feel free to speak up, share their thoughts, but at the same time without also affecting others' feelings. There are also other strategies that Edmondson and Morrison in their recent article talk about, which is really, really interesting. For example, set the scene. If we are going to let our teams really learn, what are they learning about? What is this project about? Why do they need to do this job? And those are really critically important questions that you need to ask and help your team learn about those issues, and they can focus on those. And the other is create this environment where individuals are also willing to share whatever difficulties that they have. You can do that by leading the way. Sometimes, particularly in this work environment, in a remote work environment, we all have different responsibilities in addition to our work. We have family responsibilities, so it's okay if you mention your child just showed up in distracted. That's fine. That's the way we are now. That's how we are living. But the thing is, when you say that, you're showing your vulnerability. You are showing that you are vulnerable to these different issues that are happening at home, the same as others in your team. So they feel it's okay if they also get interrupted, rather than being stressed by being interrupted. Take baby steps. I'm going to come to this trust issue later on again, but one of the things is we cannot develop trust over time, or just in 1 day or 2 days, or even in a month. Trust takes time to develop, and I believe Christine also talked about trust significantly, about the importance and how you can develop trust. But give time to your people to trust you, and do the things that you need to do so that they can trust you. And if they trust you, they are willing to share their thoughts and opinions, which is going to help your team as well. And share positive examples in your team meetings. There are things that you know of about your teams that are really good about. And those positive things, you can share whatever they are, those accomplishments. For example, if someone gets promoted, then, or if someone gets some kind of accomplishment, then mention those. But of course, you have to also ask that member if it's okay with them if you share those acknowledgements, those accomplishments. And if they say it's okay, then you can share those positive things. And when you do that, you are creating this positive environment for people also to share something that others didn't know about that. And the last one, which I kind of highlight earlier on, is be a watchdog. Some people may make unexpected comments, and those comments may really hurt the feelings of some of your team members. And you have to always kind of be cognizant of those and be mindful. And if this occurs, then you have to take immediate action in terms of kind of remedy that feeling. But generally, let individuals speak, let individuals express their opinion, let individuals be open. And if you are willing even to think loud, what it means is you are okay if others also think loud. And it's good for individuals to learn and to experience from each other. So all of these things are going to be important for you as a leader to think and create this, what we call psychological environment, psychological safety for your team, so that they can really learn very well in whatever that they do.
You know, and really taking away too these things are so important with any team, but as we are in this new environment, and as we keep, that environment might still change as we go along, as technology changes, as other things happen. Just creating that environment where people feel safe, even if you've already had an established team, it can feel a little different if somebody joins, or working in, on camera like we're doing right now, and not getting the different sorts of cues and other indicators of how we communicate, excuse me, as well. So taking the time to do that, and I know leaders too, when you talk about vulnerability, we feel pressure to have all the answers and to be strong and to, and really, of course, we want to, competence is huge in trust, and we have to demonstrate that. But some of the best leaders I know were the ones who didn't know all the answers and were quite willing to say so and come to the team to see, how we had a wealth of knowledge or expertise, or even people that we knew we could go to. And it really did create an environment that began to feel safe. Even if we didn't have that before, we could build it and establish it and shape it going forward. So I really appreciate some of the things you brought up here.
Yeah, absolutely, Sharon. And you know, it's all about the manager. I go back every time to the manager. It's in the hands of the manager to create that environment. A few other things that I wanted also to mention about this. When we are also kind of how kind of we create the teams for learning. What it means is we are, if there is a new thing that the team is going to be learning, frame it as if it is like a challenge, a very good challenge for them to know something, rather than as a responsibility or as a mess that they have to have. But if you frame it like a challenge for them to accomplish, then they will be willing to learn more about this. But the other and last one, I promise this is the last one, is the look beyond technical competency. Sometimes we as managers, we simply only think about what an individual can do, that technical competency. But beyond that, there are so many soft skills that individuals can also bring to the team that they can share and collaborate and help the team to learn better. So think about those and encourage your team to have all these additional soft skills beyond this technical skill that they may have.
Mhm. I know we usually think of the word learning, we may think immediately of a skill or a knowledge that we know that we bring to the job, which can be easier to learn, but we don't always think about how, setting ourselves up to be an agile, flexible team who is open to learning and feels comfortable if we make a mistake a little bit, or, we're not as proficient when we are doing something for the first time. So even setting ourselves up that way can build a foundation that is strong no matter what changes come at us, or no matter what new skill we might need to pick up. And we're learning it together, especially the technology. So on your last point about being a watchdog, really actively listening and kind of proactively listening for things so that you're hearing and you can see. Of course, it's inevitable that there's going to be some challenges. There might even be some conflict in the team. Can we talk a little bit about managing that and the types of conflict that we might encounter so that we're still able to create this psychological safety environment for folks?
Sure. So conflicts are unavoidable. They will exist. And conflicts generally are not viewed as positive generally. But depending on the type of conflict, we may have different views. So for example, let's start with these different types of conflict. The first one is what we call status conflict. And the second one is what we call affective conflict. And I'm going to come to this two types of conflict in detail. But there is what's task conflict? Task conflict is differences in opinions on the task at hand, different ideas, different strategies. By the way, process conflict is some researchers pose process conflict as a separate type, but it is also element of the task itself. So it's okay if individuals really have different opinions and they really disagree on the task, on the problem, on how to approach the task, and so on. That's okay, because that's how we know there are different ways of thinking, there are different ways of solving the problem, and there are different ways of defining the problem itself. So it's appropriate, it's okay for the team to have task conflict. But what we really need to know is when, if you look at this graph, when task conflict increases, generally the effectiveness, the performance also increase because people are sharing different opinions, different ways of doing it, right? But it also reaches a stage where it becomes too much for the team to take on. And therefore, after that point, when there is so much conflict about the task, then it may lead to some undesirable outcome, and it may start declining the performance of the team. So it's good to have that task conflict at a certain point, but you as a manager need to also know when to stop that discussion. Otherwise, it's going to be leading to undesirable outcome, which we call this affective or relationship conflicts that I'm going to come and discuss. And that usually is negative. The second one is what we call this affective or relationship conflict. This is a type of conflict based on personality. I just don't like that person. So whatever he or she says, I'm going to disagree. This is typical example of affective or relationship conflict. And it happens. People show that behavior. Teams face this kind of relationship conflict. They are not going to say it out loud, but they are going to contradict somebody every time somebody mentions something, some idea, and another person may present a conflicting idea, and that can show you there is some tense, there is some conflict between individuals or between groups within your team. So it's important for you as a leader to really know what kind of conflict do I have in this team, and if there is such conflict, how should I manage it? And in my work with my colleagues, Nabla Quigley and Paul Teslak in 2009, we did research, we looked at, should we manage these conflicts? And our research shows that if you try to manage task conflict, what it means if you try to control and minimize task conflict, then it actually is detrimental to your team performance. But if there are relationship conflicts, it's very important that you curtail this relationship conflicts immediately, soon as possible, so that individuals are not going to be in that environment for a long period of time and affecting your team performance. So if there is a relationship conflict, it's important that you take action to resolve that conflict immediately. So that's what our research shows. Manage that relationship conflicts immediately, but task conflict, be careful when you want to kind of manage. If it is extremely at high level, then that may lead to relationship conflict. And that's when you start monitoring and start stopping that kind of task conflict in your team as well. There is a team conflict scale that is available also. I encourage you to take that survey, and it's going to show you what you think of the level of conflict in your team and what you should be doing, what kind of task conflict, what type of conflict is actually occurring in your team. You can assess that, and you can see, you can ask your team to complete a survey and get a better sense of what type of conflict exists and how we can solve those problems.
So it seems to me that, taking away here, with task conflict and process, so it's healthy to talk about it and have differing perspectives and even a little bit of healthy debate around it, because it could lead to some innovations or some better understanding about how we do our work. But when it comes to relationship conflict, even feeling of fairness or feeling that somebody gets, especially in this environment now where people, work differently or, may approach things a little bit differently, are on campus or off and whatever, those things could really maybe undermine is too strong of a word, but it could really lead to some blockages and some challenges that need to be leveled out, gotten to a lot more sooner than say, wondering about the test and letting it get to a certain point, and then knowing that now we've gotten all we can from that. Now it's going to be detrimental. But relationship, we need to work on right away so that it doesn't build into something that's too profound or too challenging to get over between
It's true.
members.
Yes, true. And it might be a little difficult to do this, particularly in a remote setting. But as immediately when a manager recognizes that there is some kind of interpersonal or this affective conflict, they need to set up a meeting between the two individuals and try to understand what's the cause. Why are they? Why do they have that conflict? Of course, you have to have different timelines for talking to each individual first, and then you can bring them together. But it's important. It's important that you really address this issue as soon as possible, rather than let it drag.
And before we leave off of the conflict, so two things. One, always available your human resources consultant to help you to maybe if you feel like that's a dynamic that's happening sooner than later, you can always call your human resources consultants as well, so that they can help you and coach you through and prepare for those types of conversations with your staff. And then you mentioned the scale. To be able to take that, where is that available, or can we talk about that at the end, just to make sure people are able to access that?
Yeah, this is a very short 8-item scale. I believe it's 8-item, and it's we use this in our training last time in June, and it's available in HR website. And I'm sure, I think Sharon, you will be able to also post that survey for them with this slide, and they can take that scale. It's a very short, and it's not only kind of ask you to complete the survey, but also gives you which ones you need to sum up to get the score, and what high score mean, what low score mean for each of them. So the higher the score on this scale means that there is either high task conflict or high relationship conflict, which means you need to know what the next action should be. Should I manage task conflict, or should I manage, or should I deal with this relationship conflict?
Okay, great. Thank you so much for clarifying that. So we can make that available through, again, your human resource consultant or our team in organizational employee development, OED. Now, thinking about conflict and bringing it back full circle to how we can make sure that we're establishing an environment of trust, and why trust is such a foundational piece, maybe for all of these other things, as we work again in new and challenging environments. Recommend that people go back and listen to Christine's section as well, but we're going to build a little bit more on that and thinking about trust in these virtual teams. Can you talk to us a little bit about establishing some norms and again, that leader's role and how they can make an impact in that?
Sure. So I think I encourage everybody also to watch the video by Christine on trust generally. In virtual teams, however, it's a little kind of different. So I want to spend some time here to talk about a few of those. One way that individuals really believe you are trustworthy, I can actually really depend on you is the speed at which you reply to my emails, to my requests. So rapid response is important. When I say rapid response, it doesn't mean at the expense of quality. If it requires a little longer time to give the response, at least recognizing, kind of confirming that he got the email, he got the question, he got the request, and you'll get back to them by this time. If you give that information as soon as possible, then individuals feel that you are on task, you are always kind of responding, and they have, that would be one of the elements that they can actually trust you, that they can depend on you. As a manager, also you can establish norms around communication patterns. How frequent should we communicate? How frequent should we meet? How frequent should we send emails to each other? And how at what speed should we respond to each other? And do we prefer phone conversations? Do we prefer Zoom or other media to communicate? What are our policies? What is our norm? And if everybody knows those norms, then it would be easy for individuals to communicate, which really improves that trust between or among the team members. Leaders, you need to again lead by example. You are the ones who they see and they react to. If you respond on time and you are consistent in terms of your interaction with your team, then that is what they are going to also do to their colleagues. So you as a leader, if you establish that, then they are going to more likely to follow that, to follow you as a role model, and they can actually be also they can trust you, and they can also be trusted by other members when they do the same thing for other individuals. As you know, in virtual settings, we don't also interact. Thankfully, now we have this technology of Zoom or other or Teams that we can actually see each other and we feel we are always together. But we are still missing that social interaction, that the time when we go for lunch together, or we go to get coffee, and or we kind of meet on the corridor and just simply talk, and those informal interactions that we had. We don't have that. So how can we actually, how can other people trust us if they don't really know us? So one way is our performance, how good we are on terms on what we do. So encourage your team as a leader, encourage your team to really do their best in terms of their assignment. Earlier on, I talked about the quality, not the speed, right? That quality is an indicator of that performance. So the way you perform your job is going to be meaningful and going to be really important for others to believe in you, to depend on you. And if you just speed up and do crappy work and give to team members, then they are not going to be happy and they are not going to trust you. So that performance is important for you to be trusted, and therefore managers can also focus on that in this virtual environment.
We're thinking about too how things have changed for our clients or the people that we give our work to, not just among our team, but outside and external to our team. Establishing those norms around that too, and coming back to that as a group together. Seems to be real important here, because it can help us make decisions together in a collaborative way. And even as a leader, feeling comfortable in making a decision that may not necessarily be easy or that everybody agrees with, but is founded in doing the right thing for ourselves and our customers. And again, establishing the quality parameters that we need to know, which may have changed in the way we do that. And then there's just feeling of no boundaries, right? We have this great technology, but we also are feeling, that there's no boundaries, as much as we're feeling that there's great flexibility and work-life balance. So establishing that together versus just expecting things as a team, your norms could be different than somebody else's, but as long as they're established together, there's a great sense of freedom and trust. I think that could spring forward from that and what you're saying.
Yeah. The thing is, we have to recognize that virtual environments usually create big challenge, and the most challenging thing is developing that trust. And we do whatever possible in our realm of opportunity that we can actually help our employees to develop trust in us, and and develop trust with in their team members as well. So it's all kind of shared responsibility, I would say.
Mhm, mhm. Well, I know that we're coming to the little bit of the home stretch of what we talked about. We focused on 4 pillars, if you will, even though there's certainly many more, but good foundational pillars of collaboration, of learning as a team, not just skills and knowledge, but learning as a team and how we work well together. Conflict when it arises, not to expect that it won't, because it will, but how we manage it when we do experience it, and then building this trust overall. So if we kind of come back to summarizing things that and remembering that, why are we doing all this? Well, to achieve our goals and to achieve an effectiveness in what we do, and hopefully to love our work more too, to be energized in what we do. Can we think about just some additional thoughts as we wrap up, and some what helps effectiveness overall as we wrap up, and maybe some do's and don'ts that we can do as leaders?
Yeah, sure. So team effectiveness really, there are so many things, as I said, and we talked about those 4 things, but just kind of to add a few points, there is a really great article by Kazenbach and Smith, what they call discipline of teams, and they have about 8 of those, but I picked only 3 of these here today. Spend lots of time. We used to have that during the in-person. Now it's going to be a little challenging, but still it's doable. If we have, like, for example, sometime in a week where all the team members actually meet virtually and have a glass of water, beer, or whatever it is that we like to drink, and just chat for about 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. That by itself is going to help individuals to create that cohesive environment. Fortunately, for many employees who've been there before, that is already established. That cohesion probably is established. But for newcomers, it's going to be a challenging time for them, particularly if they join during COVID time, when we are all away and we are at our home and doing everything virtually. So let's kind of create that time for everybody to talk about something else other than work. And that's going to create that environment of trust, also environment of psychological safety that we talked about, but also creates that one-to-one relationship that we need to have for us to feel confident in each other. Clear rules and expectations. It's important, particularly in virtual settings. What are our rules? What are our call it rule of engagement for us for work? What are our rules? How frequently do we meet, and so on? Those are the things that I mentioned earlier. We still need to set those rules clearly and let everybody know what those expectations are. And the last point that I really want to point is exploiting the power of positive feedback. You know, we always think of, when we think of feedback, we think about the amount of money or how much it's going to cost us. But there are so many ways that cost us nothing, but can create that positive environment. And for example, a simple thank you is going to be very important. It's going to encourage individuals to feel that they are appreciated, they are acknowledged, and to know that you are actually paying attention to what they've done. These are really important. When you say thank you to one person, one of your team members, you are indirectly also encouraging that kind of interaction among other team members. And so you need to create that positive feedback, recognition, and rewards as you see it fit in your environment. I think there is a section that in this training session where the last session we talked about the importance of positive feedback and so on. I encourage you all also to watch that section as well. So some kind of do's and don'ts. And these are from different sources. There is an HBR article published 2020 by Knight, the first said, and second, And the second point is by the Gallup article, leading remotely. So I just combine those do's and don'ts. Just mention some of them. As I said, first, do set clear priorities and objectives. Be inclusive. I want to emphasize this, be inclusive. When you're sending an email to your team, make sure that all your team members are copied in the email. All your team members are informed about the same thing. Don't send individual emails unless otherwise, of course, that is responsible for one person. But having that inclusive environment, inclusive email, inclusive communication creates that cohesive environment that we talked about earlier. And reflect on your bias and predispositions. Sometimes we have biases, and acknowledging those biases is important. And we try to minimize our biases by deliberate actions. And there is implicit bias that you can kind of take tests on and see if you have bias in. We all have biases. The thing is knowing what we are biased on and what can we do to minimize those biases is really critically important. And the other important thing that I really emphasize is individualize your support to your team. Earlier I said inclusive, right? Be inclusive, right? But at the same time, be also individualize your support. For example, some people may need some kind of flexibility. We don't want to use flexibility in general terms, for example. Some people may need flexibility based on the time that they start working and the time that they end. So that is kind of the daily schedule. Some of them could be the days, or sometimes the flexibility could be the location where they want to work. Or for other people, flexibility could be totally different. So ask your people, what is that flexibility mean to them? And what do they really want? As long as you can accommodate those flexibilities, do it. And when you are willing to help them, then they are going to give it back to you in numerous ways, even in extra role behavior. So those are what we call the do's. And the don'ts, of course, don't be rigid. The more rigid we are, actually we are going to be treated and perceived as we are not really good managers. Beyond how we are going to be perceived, though, the implication to your employees is really important. When I'm rigid, what am I sending to my employees? One, they are going to follow me and they are going to be rigid to their colleagues as well. But also, there is nothing that's going to be done unless otherwise everything is nailed to the dot. And we don't want that to happen. Sometimes flexibility is really important. And ignore signs of stress from your team. People are stressed, and actually this stress and recently jumped to about 70-80%, which is really huge. What it means is almost 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 people are stressed. It's huge. So you as a manager, don't be one of those adding to that stress. Be cognizant of your employees' stress and help them out. And the last one, don't forget about fun. Include fun in your communication. And many projects and research projects that I have been to, one thing that always comes up to my that I remember is the project that I did when I was a PhD student with my advisor, Susan Taylor. She was fun to the task. And every time we meet, she drops something to make us really, to create that fun environment. And not only we do this job, we do our projects, but we also had really great time working together and be happy to be there. So don't forget about fun. It creates something new, positive environment for the team.
Yeah, and we know, just endorphins. Even there's research to tell us how we can be much more effective, more creative, have a little more tolerance, and be more problem solvers. It's such a long day and condensed day all at the same time. So having a little fun, having a little transition time, even because as we go from meeting to meeting to call, can free up a little bit of space too, to give us a chance to take a breath and then get on to the next thing. Well, Dr. Tekleb, thank you so very much for spending this time with us today. Would it be possible to contact you as well if someone had a question to follow up?
Yes, absolutely. Anyone, feel free to reach out to me. You can send me by email. I'm most responsive to emails, and I'm not sure if our office phones work, but I think emails would be the best option at this time.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. So we'll say goodbye for now. And again, we'll encourage people to reach out to their human resources consultants as well, or the OED team, Don Aziz, director of our team, and myself, and Eric Johnson.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Yes, bye.